sorcery. Christos was praised. Christos was praised. Hello, brothers and sisters, and that was Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Our Judeo-Christian values are worth fighting for, aren't they? Like many of my colleagues, we fought all night long, and we would have continued fighting into the rising sun for our children. And I want to say one thing about the gladiator. There's a great scene in there where he says, shields together, fight as one. 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 We will keep doing this. We will keep fighting for our kids because it's the next generation that will also live free, not just us. If Stalin wouldn't even have done comprehensive sex education, the Democrats shouldn't either. God bless you guys.
I guess I'm announcing the next speaker, and I would like to say this. We're on a shoestring budget. We didn't have a lot of money. I was able to find an Irishman down in the basement of this building, and he agreed to speak. So let me introduce a friend of mine, State Representative Matt Shea.
How's everybody doing? Man, look at this. You guys, in Scripture, there's a story about Benaiah who went down into the lion's den on a snowy day. I love that. Let's embrace the weather here. We will never, ever give up. We will never back down in defending our right to bear arms. So it was interesting, the Seattle Times said that calling Matt Shea a domestic terrorist actually has made him more popular. I love that. They're finally figuring it out. And the fact is, they're trying to label us all domestic terrorists. They're trying to use those labels and then use red flag laws to silence opposition. It is a Marxist tactic. It is a Marxist strategy, and we are always going to fight Marxism in America. The socialists will not win. Now, I want to tell you a quick story. How many of you have ever heard of Vladimir Vinnikov? Maybe a couple of you? 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the National Socialists invade Ukraine. And they come to Kharkiv, Ukraine, and they come to a house. The Nazi sympathizers try to take the cow of a family in that town. And a young man, Vladimir Vinnikov, all he had was a pitchfork, a wooden pitchfork, because of course they'd been disarmed by then.
Excuse me, sir.
And the Nazi sympathizers tried to take the cow. He fought them off with the pitchfork. And then real Nazis came back and arrested him. And as he's sitting in the basement of a makeshift prison, his mom comes to the window, that basement window of this makeshift prison, which was really a house. And he's crying, and he says to his mom, "I'm so sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have fought back." And she said, "Son, never apologize for defending your family." Now, the National Socialists took Vladimir into slave labor for years. And when he was finally able to come home, you know what he came home to? A family. Because the Nazis left the cow when they took Vladimir. Vladimir was my father-in-law. And when they came to take the cows of Ammon Bundy in Nevada, I wasn't going to stand by and back down. When they came to take the liberty of the Hammond family, which was pardoned by President Trump, thank God, I wasn't going to be sitting on my duff back in Washington State. When they came to take the firearms rights of a veteran in North Idaho, I was going to stand with the county sheriff and say, no, that's not going to happen on our watch. This isn't about one person. It's not about President Trump or Matt Shea. It's about we the people. We're just standing in the way. We all need to be on the line, standing for the right to bear arms, standing for all of our liberties, the right to life, the right to liberty, the right to property, and the ability to defend the same. That is what it means to be American. Now, I want to end with a couple of things very quickly. I talked about this weaponization of political labels. Label lynching. We shouldn't be surprised they're trying to do that because they can't win when we argue the truth. We got the truth on our side. They can't win. All they can do is label us. So don't be surprised if you get labeled. Don't let it distract you. Keep fighting. Keep up the fight. Go in and talk to your legislators. And I'm going to say this. You know, I find it interesting that Antifa hasn't been investigated. After all of the things they've done, I find it interesting that John Brown Gun Club hasn't been investigated when somebody who is wearing their baseball cap tries to firebomb a federal facility in Western Washington. I find it interesting the Socialist Rifle Association hasn't been investigated, even though a member of that organization issued a death threat against me and my family. I find it interesting that Redneck Revolt hasn't been investigated, even though they posted a terror training manual online. That is interesting, don't you think? Yeah. I think so too. The fact of the matter is, the real enemies of this country aren't being investigated. The real enemies of this country aren't being looked into. The real enemies of this country aren't being reported on by the media. The real enemies of this country want to destroy the Constitution. They want to destroy everything we believe in. I love this country. I served 2 tours overseas in combat, and I came back, and this is a new battlefield for us, isn't it? And this new battlefield, this political battlefield, we should never back down. We should never quit. We should never give in to those that want to destroy our Constitution. We need to stand up for it because we love this country, we love America, and we want our children to experience freedom as well. God bless you guys. Thank you for being out here. We'll see you later.
Next, we have Representative Shea from Legislative District 4. It's coming up.
How's everybody doing? Good. Liberty! I love it! Liberty! Man, so, hey, if the British aren't going to Brexit, we're going to Lexit, right? Right? Gracious, they can't get their act together over there. They've delayed it now to like April 12th or something, whatever. It's supposed to be today. Come on, that's why we broke off from England, I think, right? Because they couldn't get their act together. All right, so hey, I want to introduce a few representatives that are here. They're not going to be speaking, but that support what we're doing. First of all, from the 9th Legislative District, 2 of the most fierce property rights defenders in all of Washington State, Joe Schmick and Mary Dye. Raise your hands. There you go. Also from the 16th Legislative District, Prosser, Washington. He's actually one of the guys that sits next to me on the floor and actually makes sure I vote right. Okay? Bill Jenkins. Go ahead, raise your hand, Bill. And when I'm done, we're going to bring up somebody very special who I can see in the back clapping lonely right now. All right. So, I want to just talk a little bit about our foundations. And my entire speech is pretty simple. I am tired of downtown Seattle politics, aren't you? And I want to just talk, I don't normally read speeches, but there's a couple parts of this I just want you to hear. You know, we are a Judeo-Christian country. That's where our foundations come from. They are. And I don't think we should be ashamed of that because it was those foundations that allowed for freedom to happen. And there was a group of people in the 20th century who, based on the writings of an anti-Christian, anti-Semitic guy named Karl Marx, thought we could do it differently with communism. And it ended up being the bloodiest, tyrannical century in the history of the world because of that. But then there were some folks in Venezuela who said, hey, you did your communism wrong. We want to try something different. Right? And now we're seeing in Venezuela the fact that they're living years on now, by the way, with food shortages, no freedom, guns being confiscated, and now a massive power outage that's blacked out the entire country. And they're still saying, hey, let's try socialism now here in Washington, right? We can do socialism better, right? That's not our values, beliefs, culture, tradition, and heritage. It's just not. I believe in individual liberty, and there's something great about individual liberty. It's scary because you could fail. But you know what? That's what motivates us to succeed. I want to read something from the atheist communist Chinese because I love quoting him. All right, so we studied everything we could from the historical, political, economic, and cultural perspective. Now, this is the Beijing Academy of Sciences. At first we thought it was because you had more powerful guns than we had. Now I want to stop there. They're trying to figure out in this study what makes the West great. Okay? At first we thought it was because you had more powerful guns than we had. Then we thought you had the best political system, but that wasn't it either. Next, we focused on your economic system, but in the past 20 years, we realized that the heart of your culture is your religion, Christianity. That is why the West has been so powerful. The Christian moral foundation of social and cultural life was what made possible the emergence of capitalism and then the successful transition to democratic politics. We don't have any doubt about this. Even China knows why. Woo! Yeah, let's give China a round of applause for getting it right for once. Look, I don't bear downtown Seattle any ill will. I really don't. Let them experiment with socialism, but darn it, let us experiment with liberty. Let us experiment with liberty. And like I said, a state should represent the basic culture, traditions, values, and heritage of a people. And right now, I don't feel represented by downtown Seattle, right? And their values. And let me just read off a few, okay? See if you agree with these, all right? They always say in Olympia that we need to be one Washington, okay? Well, here's what one Washington means. It means confiscating your mining claims or making it so you can't even mine from your mining claims. Do you share those values, traditions, culture, and heritage? No. How about showing pornography to our children under the guise of education? Do you share that value? I don't. How about attempting to ban the right to bear arms or make it so darn hard you can't even own a firearm? Do you share those values? How about attempting to ban the right of free speech on our college campuses? Do you share those values? How about taking away parental choice? And by the way, if you haven't seen the article out of Arizona, this is where it's headed. Do you see what happened to those parents down in Arizona? A SWAT team busted down their door, seized their children because one of their kids had a high fever, a fever which broke, and they didn't take them to the hospital. Think about that for a second. Do you want to see that here in Washington? No! How about trying to mandate vaccines against our will? No! How about tearing apart limb from limb babies in the womb? No! How about allowing the destruction of our private property by introducing wolves or whatever other regulations are going to take away our private property? Does that sound like your values? No! How about restricting our ability to prosper by taxing the good out of us with B&O taxes and higher property taxes or low-carbon fuel standards that are going to raise a gallon of gasoline price by 20 cents? Does that sound like your values? No! How about free heroin needles? Does that sound like your values? No! How about allowing homeless camps to wreak havoc in most downtown areas on the west side of the state? Does that sound like your values? No! How about calling us ingrates and hicks and ignorant sodbusters from the east side that should be grateful for the beneficence of downtown Seattle? That doesn't sound like it either. Or how about just simply this, what Jim Walsh was saying? Just telling us that they think they know better than we do how we can live our lives. I don't want to live in a place like that, do you? No. So when we talk about freedom and when we talk about liberty, I think we just need to be completely unashamed that if we go forward from this date, that people that say, it's never going to happen, Matt, you're never going to split the state, that we just say, wait a minute, it's already happening. We don't have a choice. And oh, by the way, for those of you that have ever worked in construction, it's easier to build a new house than it is to remodel one. And for those critics that are out there, I just want to say this. Theodore Roosevelt said it better than I did. It is not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms and the great devotions and spends himself in a worthy cause, and who at his worst knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at his best, even if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. I am sick and tired of people saying, I don't want to risk success. That idea is hateful to Americans. My ancestors that came over to this country, if they thought that way, would have drowned in the ocean coming from Ireland. I want to live free so my grandkids live free. Don't you? Don't you? And I'll just end with this, because I'll get wound up, because we got to go vote on the budget here. And by the way, I mean, just $9 billion more, and they still have to raise taxes. I mean, does that share? No, that's not our values.
No.
Yeah, hold on to your pocketbook, too, while you're walking around here today, all right? Look, this is simply, for me, I think it's summed up in one line, and I was actually thinking about this last night, that I would rather die and fail in the pursuit of freedom and liberty than live in the bondage of tyranny.
Amen.
And I know all of you share that. And I really I have a love-hate relationship with technology, because people are like, oh, I don't need to show up, you guys are going to live stream it. You got to show up. Whoever's listening online, you got to show up, okay? Make a difference. Look, I want to thank everybody out here that has been volunteering and all the teams that are forming across Eastern Washington. 23,000 people have been surveyed over the last 3 years, 72% support. We are the majority. This is going to happen. We're going to see Liberty State in our lifetime, and it's going to be us that's going to do it. God bless you guys, and thank you for being here today. All right.
After that, my goodness. How's everybody doing today? Man, I love the Second Amendment. You know why I like the Second Amendment? Why I like Article 1, Section 24 of the State Constitution? You know why I like it? Because it is a right you exercise. It's not something theoretical. It's something each and every one of us should be doing each and every day, right? Yeah. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's immoral. I think it's immoral to create places in this country that can turn into places of slaughter. And I'm talking about gun-free zones, folks. How many mass killings have occurred in a gun-free zone? How many? So, how many lives do we have to lose because people want to take away our right to bear arms, our right to defend our family, to defend our friends, to defend our communities against terrorists and against everybody else that wants to perpetrate evil? Seems like a pretty simple thing to me, doesn't it? Yeah. Doesn't it? Yeah. So, you know, earlier this year we made national news because the media decided to do some fake news. They said, Matt Shea wants guns in stadiums and convention centers. And many people said, yeah, why not? And I said, well, you guys already know that's law in Washington State, right? It's actually law in Washington State already, preempted at the state level that we can carry in our convention centers and our stadiums. The problem was those local authorities were contracting your rights away without any say from you. So I said, hey, this right comes from God, not from anybody in government. We need to protect that right, especially in the place that is the most likely terrorist targets in America, our stadiums and convention centers, and especially so our retired police officers and our veterans can carry in those places and help stop another terrorist attack. Do you support me in that? Yeah. So we need to ask the media why they don't. We need to start asking the media the questions to justify their position. I want to end with this. We have a lot of bills this year. that are expanding the right to bear arms. Okay? One of them is to give notice when your concealed carry permit is coming up to be renewed, all right, or to expire. It's the only license out there that we don't get a notice of expiration. So we have a bill on that. Now check it out when you go talk to your representatives. Ask them if they support it. But I want to talk about one other bill that's very important to me, and that is a bill that we're going to be dropping tomorrow, Monday, to completely repeal I-594. Now, we need to do that for the sake of our veterans, and we need to do that for the sake of our families. And I'll tell you something else. This isn't about guys standing up here that are state representatives. It's about all of us. Because I'll tell you right now, when they came for that veterans firearms in North Idaho, when we got the call, there were only 2 state representatives that showed up and the county sheriff. And God bless that county sheriff, Darrell Wheeler, up there in North Idaho. He stood with us. But it was all the friends and neighbors that saw us standing on that veterans front lawn that showed up, waved some great flags with a snake on it, I love that flag, and said, you know what, you're going to have to come through us to take this veterans firearms away. And you know what happened? When the people stood on the line between government and that veteran and his rights, it was the government that backed down. And that is the message for all of us today. If we stand up, eventually they'll back down. God bless you guys. Thank you for being out here today. Take care.
Not everybody on the left
How's
side.
everybody doing? So, a couple days ago, there were a lot of death threats against me and my family, and they said I needed to run and not come to this rally. Well, you can see what I think of that right now, can't you? Now, I want to be clear on a couple things. The right to bear arms is unalienable. It means it exists outside of government for every single human being. Doesn't matter what your religion, doesn't matter what your gender, doesn't matter what your ethnicity, and that's why it exists, to protect you even if you're a minority. Amen? Now, I've seen a lot of attempts at gun control this year here in Olympia. And I want to say that the attempt to disarm people, those people actually are attempting to divide us. And we cannot let that happen, can we? If the Constitution means what it says, it's meant to protect every person. It's meant to protect every person against an overreaching government. In fact, it exists for this very moment when they want to try to take our firearms. I've been called a lot of things over the last couple of days, but one of the proudest I was called was patriot. And it's great to see all you patriots out here today. What we must not let them do, is through fake news or lies or intimidation or bullying, is to divide us. We need to learn how to heal our wounds as a nation, as a state. Stop trying to demonize people by calling them names just because they disagree with you, but honestly call out untruth. Honestly call out those who are trying to go away from the Constitution, because that's what's dividing us. Now I want to end with just something very simple. The other day, I was talking with some good friends of our family who happen to be Vietnamese. I was talking to some good friends of our family who happen to be Hispanic. I was talking to some good friends of our family who happen to be Chinese. I was talking to some good friends of our family who happen to be black. Let's not use that anymore. I don't care. We're Americans. We are Americans. We are Americans. So I want you to turn to the person shake their hand and say, thank you for being here, American. Let's do that right now. All right, let the healing begin. Let our Constitution reign, and let God Almighty above